When the RMS Titanic set sail in April 1912, it wasn't just the largest ship afloat. It was a floating palace of food, class, and human ambition. Behind the polished silverware and crystal goblets, more than 100 chefs, bakers, and stewards worked around the clock to feed over 2,200 passengers. From lavish multi-course dinners of oysters and filet mignon in first class to humble Irish stew and porridge in third, every meal reflected the rigid social divide of the era and the dreams of those on board. Yet for a few brief days before tragedy struck, the Titanic offered something rare, a perfect taste of Edwardian elegance. These 30 foods were actually served, real dishes, prepared and enjoyed on that ill-fated voyage. Each bite tells a story of luxury, hope, and the final supper aboard the most famous ship in history. Number 1. Consommé Olga. It shimmered like gold in fine china. Consommé Olga was a clear veal broth, delicate, aromatic, and so refined it could only belong to first class. Served as the opening course of the Titanic's final first-class dinner, it was flavored with white wine and garnished with thin slices of sturgeon. Every spoonful whispered of luxury. To Edwardian elites, clear soup was more than food. It was a signal of refinement, a palate cleanser before the feast to come. In the elegant dining saloon, lit by crystal chandeliers, this consommé set the tone, calm, perfect, and impossibly distant from the icy Atlantic waiting outside. Number 2. Oysters à la Russe. Fresh, briny, and served on crushed ice, oysters à la Russe were a symbol of status. The oysters came chilled with a tangy dressing of vinegar, pepper, and shallots, Russian style. In 1912, refrigeration was a marvel of engineering, and the Titanic boasted top-tier cold storage rooms. To dine on raw oysters at sea was a flex of technology, as much as taste. Guests like millionaire John Jacob Astor IV and socialite Margaret Brown might have savored them, while a string quartet played softly nearby. For a brief, glittering moment, the Atlantic felt tamed, cold outside, but elegance inside. Number 3. Poached salmon with mousseline sauce. Soft pink salmon, draped in a velvety mousseline. A hollandaise enriched with whipped cream. This dish showcased French culinary mastery at its finest. The Titanic's first-class menu followed Parisian tradition, and this was its heart. Served with cucumber ribbons, it tasted light yet impossibly rich. The fish came from the North Atlantic itself, caught fresh on the voyage, and stored in ice below deck. For passengers who'd never cooked a meal in their lives, this was art, edible sophistication, crafted miles from shore by chefs who worked in silence below the waterline. Number 4. Filet mignon lily. Few dishes captured the spirit of Edwardian opulence, like filet mignon lily. A tender cut of beef topped with foie gras, truffle, and a drizzle of Madeira wine sauce, named after a French opera star, because even dinner had to have drama. This wasn't survival food, it was spectacle on a plate. Served on fine china, with a side of artichoke hearts and potatoes Anna, this dish represented wealth at its most unapologetic. For some it was their last meal, but on that night, no one could have imagined it. Number 5. Chicken lyonnaise. Simple in appearance, elegant in flavor. Chicken lyonnaise came sautéed with caramelized onions and herbs, finished with a splash of white wine. It was served to those who preferred something lighter after a rich soup or roast. The onions were cooked slowly until sweet, giving the dish a warmth that stood out against the sea's chill. In the grand dining room, as the ship sailed calmly toward the Atlantic's edge, the smell of lyonnaise onions must have mingled with laughter, music, and the faint hum of the engines, the heartbeat of a world unaware of how fragile it was. Number 6. Lamb with mint sauce. A quintessentially English favorite. Roasted lamb carved fresh and served with a cool, sharp mint sauce. On the Titanic, this was comfort food for the British elite, a reminder of home and heritage. The sauce, made from mint leaves steeped in vinegar and sugar, cut through the richness of the meat. For first-class guests, it was a taste of stability. Tradition plated beautifully amid the uncertainty of the sea. In second class, a simpler roast might have been served too, because even without the silver trays, everyone aboard shared one thing, the hope of arrival. Number 7. Squab à la Goddard. squab, tender young pigeon, was a true delicacy. Cooked with mushrooms, truffles, and Madeira wine, a la Goddard referred to a rich French sauce made for royalty. The chefs aboard Titanic trained in Parisian kitchens, and this dish proved it. Tiny birds, roasted and glazed, arrived at tables like edible jewels. While steerage passengers dined on stew and bread, this was luxury taken to near excess. But that was the Titanic's promise. Nothing held back, not even in the middle of the ocean. Number 8. Roast duckling with apple sauce, golden skin, sweet sauce, and a scent that filled the dining saloon. Roast duckling was one of the highlights of the first-class dinner, crisp to perfection and paired with tart apple puree. In Edwardian cuisine, duck symbolized refinement. It required patience, skill, and perfect timing. The sauce balanced richness with freshness, a reminder of autumn orchards and country estates. On the night of April 14, 1912, guests cut into roast duck, sipping fine wine, completely unaware that hours later, they'd trade crystal goblets for lifeboats and darkness. Number 9. Sirloin of beef with horseradish cream. Hearty, fragrant, and deeply traditional. Sirloin of beef carved from a silver trolley was served with a creamy horseradish sauce, the centerpiece of the meal. This was the dish that united first-class men around the table, a taste of England's Sunday roasts at sea. The horseradish added fire to every bite, while Yorkshire puddings and potatoes completed the spread. For the stewards who served it, each motion was timed to perfection. The Titanic's dining rituals were choreographed like theater, and this dish was the main act. Number 10. Asparagus salad with champagne saffron dressing. After so many rich courses, a light salad offered elegance and restraint. Fresh asparagus, rare at sea, was served chilled, coated in a golden dressing made from saffron and champagne. To have this in 1912 aboard a ship was unthinkable luxury. It showed not just wealth, but the power of logistics, a floating city that could keep greens fresh mid-Atlantic. Passengers didn't just eat, they dined, performing civility even in isolation. This salad symbolized that balance, delicate, fleeting, and soon to vanish forever. Number 11. Waldorf pudding. Sweet, soft, and surprisingly modern. Waldorf pudding, made with apples, raisins, and crushed walnuts baked into a rich custard, was a dessert born from the famous Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. On the Titanic, it symbolized luxury with an American twist. Served warm with a drizzle of vanilla sauce, it carried a scent of cinnamon and butter that drifted across the Grand Saloon. For many passengers, this was the taste of the New World, the flavor of hope baked into every bite. Number 12. Peaches in chartreuse jelly. Few desserts better captured Edwardian indulgence. Fresh peaches, rare at sea, were suspended in a shimmering green jelly flavored with chartreuse, a French herbal liqueur made by monks. The dessert was translucent, glittering under electric light, served in crystal dishes that mirrored the golden age of travel. This was more than a sweet, it was performance art. Passengers marveled at its color and delicacy, unaware that the luxury around them was as fragile as the dessert itself. Number 13. Baked haddock with sharp sauce. Down in second class, the meals were simpler but still hearty. Baked haddock, a firm white fish, was served with a tangy sharp sauce made of vinegar, mustard, and butter. It was filling, nourishing, and unmistakably British. For teachers, clerks, and small families traveling in second class, this wasn't extravagance, it was decency. The food was honest, the dining hall warm and bright, and for a few evenings, everyone could pretend they were part of something grand. Number 14. Curry chicken with rice. The Victorian Empire left its mark on every British kitchen, even those aboard ships. Curried chicken with rice was one of the most exotic dishes served in second class, flavored with mild curry powder, onions, and cream. For passengers traveling from colonies or ports across the world, it was a comforting bridge between old and new. The aroma of spice must have stood out amid the simpler fare, a reminder that even at sea, Britain's empire stretched far beyond the horizon. Number 15. Roast turkey with cranberry sauce. While first class dined on duck and pigeon, second class passengers celebrated with roast turkey. served with tart cranberry sauce and boiled potatoes. This was a nostalgic nod to holidays and homecomings. The Titanic's second class was famous for its comfort, more like a fine hotel than a ship. For newlyweds, immigrants, and travelers seeking a better life, this meal was something rare, a moment of belonging, shared around a table, as the Atlantic rolled quietly below. Number 16. Baked potatoes and peas. Simple, yes, but perfect. Baked potatoes and peas accompanied nearly every second-class meal. The potatoes were roasted until crisp outside and soft within, while the peas, simmered in butter, brought sweetness to the plate. To modernize, it seems plain, but to passengers who'd saved for months to afford passage, it was warmth, color, and care. It proved that even in the shadow of luxury, dignity could still be served on a plate. Number 17. Boiled beef with turnips and carrots. In an era before refrigeration on land was widespread, the Titanic's ability to serve fresh beef was astonishing. In second class, boiled beef was cooked slowly with root vegetables, a dish of patience and comfort. The broth was rich, the meat tender, and the vegetables sweet from long cooking. For British families and Irish travelers alike, it tasted like home, like Sunday afternoons and family tables left behind. Number 18. Plum pudding with sweet sauce. A holiday favorite turned seagoing tradition. Plum pudding wasn't made with plums at all, but with raisins, suet, and spices, boiled until dense and sticky. On the Titanic, it was served with a hot sweet sauce, often flavored with rum or brandy. For those in second class, it was a highlight of dinner, a reminder of Christmas and festivity. Few realized that the dessert's rich, dark sweetness would become one of the last comforts before history changed forever. Number 19. Cabinet pudding. Known also as diplomat pudding. This dessert was made from leftover sponge cake soaked in custard, layered with fruit and syrup, then steamed. It was warm, soft, and aromatic, a dish of thrift turned luxury. On the Titanic, it proved that second-class cuisine could rival any fine home on land. The pudding's gentle sweetness and scent of nutmeg were a final taste of warmth in the cold Atlantic night that followed. Number 20. Soda bread with fresh butter. Nothing fancy, just honest bread baked from buttermilk, flour, and soda, served fresh with golden butter. But for the Irish emigrants aboard, this simple loaf meant everything. It was the flavor of hearth and homeland. Many ate it at breakfast with tea or jam, not knowing that for most, it would be their last taste of home. Soda bread on the Titanic wasn't just food, it was memory, carried across the ocean and lost beneath it. Number 21. Tomato soup. It was humble, hearty, and soothing. A bowl of thick tomato soup served warm with a hunk of bread. In second and third class alike, this dish carried comfort. The tang of tomato and touch of cream offered something familiar in a world of change. For a ship filled with accents and dreams from every corner of Europe, a shared bowl of soup was a quiet bond. A reminder that across all divides, everyone hungered for the same things: warmth, belonging, and hope. Number 22. Porridge with milk and sugar. Mornings in third class began with the scent of porridge. Made from oats and sweetened with sugar, it was ladled into tin bowls by weary stewards at dawn. Simple, filling, and kind to the stomach, it fueled passengers for the long days of ocean crossing. Mothers fed it to their children. Men ate it before heading to deck for air. It was survival food, but also a small act of care, one spoonful at a time. Number 23. Vegetable soup. Vegetable soup may sound plain, but aboard the Titanic, it was nourishment in its truest form. Potatoes, barley, cabbage, and carrots simmered together until tender, the kind of meal that could stretch to feed everyone. For many third-class passengers, it tasted like home. It was the food of farmers and factory workers, of families who had known hunger and learned to make something beautiful from almost nothing. Number 24. Roast beef and brown gravy. On Sunday evening, even in steerage, there was cause for celebration. Roast beef, thick slices served with brown gravy, was the centerpiece of the third-class Sunday dinner. The smell filled the lower decks, mingling with laughter and the sounds of fiddles from the common room. For a few moments, no one felt poor or forgotten. The food, simple as it was, carried dignity. Number 25. Irish stew. It was the heart of the third-class kitchen, a pot of lamb, onions, and potatoes slow-cooked until tender. For Irish immigrants, this was memory made edible. It warmed the bones and lifted spirits as the ship cut through freezing Atlantic winds. Some called it poverty food, but aboard the Titanic, Irish stew became a symbol of endurance, a reminder that even the humblest meals can hold a lifetime of love. Number 26. Ham and pea soup. Salty, smoky, and thick with peas, this dish stretched scraps into something hearty. It was a working man's meal, common on ships and in poor towns alike. On the Titanic, it was served hot, filling bowls and stomachs across the steerage dining room. It was food that clung to the ribs, the kind that helped people believe they'd make it to morning. 27. Boiled potatoes and cabin biscuits. Potatoes were the backbone of third-class dining, boiled soft and served beside biscuits baked hard enough to last weeks at sea. Plain and pale, perhaps, but dependable. For travelers leaving behind hunger and uncertainty, these simple foods meant survival. Every bite was a step toward a better life, even if that life never came. Number 28. Fresh bread with jam or marmalade. Each morning, the scent of baking drifted through the ship, bread rising in iron ovens, cooling on racks before being spread with jam or citrus marmalade. It was one of the few luxuries that crossed all classes. Sweet, golden, and warm to the touch, it spoke of home kitchens and motherly care. Bread was the one food that didn't discriminate. Number 29. Cheese and pickles. Cold, tangy, and simple, cheese with pickles was often served at supper in third class. The sharpness of the pickles cut through the heaviness of the day, while the cheese offered protein and satisfaction. For passengers from rural Europe, it was a familiar combination, the kind of snack one might pack for a long train ride. Aboard the Titanic, it was a taste of normal life in a world that was anything but ordinary. Number 30. Rice soup. Soft, mild, and easily digested, rice soup was often given to children or those feeling seasick. It was a comfort dish, simple to make, easy to eat. Perhaps the last meal many ever touched. As the Titanic sailed into the icy Atlantic, these bowls of rice soup were a quiet mercy, nourishment in the shadow of disaster. When the ship went down, so did the kitchens, the menus, and the men who made them. But through these 30 dishes, the Titanic still speaks, telling a story not of tragedy alone, but of taste, humanity, and the fleeting beauty of life at sea.